Welcome back, everyone. This is another episode of Grilled of the Diaspora, and I'm your host, Nakaira G. And okay, I hope that y'all have watched Love Island. Okay, if you have not watched Love Island, skip this episode because it's gonna be spoilers, and we have to really talk about something. Let's talk about it. Okay, so I am a newcomer of Love Island. This is my first season. So it's so funny because when I moved to New York, I moved into my friend's apartment and they have a lot of roommates. And so the roommates already watched Love Island. So it was pretty much like I had no choice, right? Y'all, within 2 episodes, I was literally hooked. I was literally addicted. I was like, oh, okay, this is my show. Once they told me, like, it comes on every day except 2 days out the week, but it's every day or whatever, I was just like, oh, this is my type of insanity. However, I have watched many things in my life that are triggering. Love Island has to be top tier, most triggering piece of reality television that I've ever witnessed. I thought Zeus Network was crazy. Honestly, I am so sorry, but Love Island and Peacock, y'all have done something. Okay? I don't even have the interest to even talk about the kink community that is heavily woven and integrated into this show. But we just have to talk about the racism, the microaggressions, the colorism. We have to talk about that. And I really hate to be that person to go into it in this type of way for this show that is supposed to be very silly, but the show is not silly. Okay. So I don't even really want to go into like the ethnicities of all of the contestants, but I just want to say this. There are Afro Latinas on the show. There are Latinos on the show. There are black people on the show. There is a Haitian girl on the show. There are black men on the show. There is an Israeli. There is a Palestinian. And there was one resident Asian person who was Thai but had a British accent. And there was an Australian. Okay. So even in the casting of the show, I was immediately like, right? Because it's mostly white and black in reality, right? It's mostly white with white as in white Americans, Europeans, and Spaniards, particularly, and white Latinos. And then it was black, whereas it was black Americans, there was a Haitian American, as well as biracial and Afro Latino, right? And then everyone else, it was just kind of one of each person, one Palestinian, one Israeli, one Australian, one Thai person. But in the midst of all of that, it was one thing to kind of witness like microaggressions when it came to dating preferences. In American society, what people are calling dating preferences are really just racial microaggressions. I'm so sorry. Like the whole concept of like, what's your type? I thought it was so funny that when other people on the show, when the Islanders on the show were asked, like, what's your type? Some people were not honest and they would be like, oh, I'm attracted to everybody. Oh, I'm real big on personality, blah, blah, blah. But then there were some people like Jeremiah who answered the question very, very honestly. When Adrena asked him, so what's you guys' type? He said foreign and Latino. As a black man who is not foreign and as a black man who is not Latina, right? But that was his priority choice, as he said. Now, I do think that because Adrena asked the question, he more so just answered it to be like, I'm attracted to you, instead of just saying, I'm attracted to you. He said foreign and Latino, which kind of gives off like you have a preference. And I think that was a mistake on his part, unless he meant that. But I think that he just said that to kind of be flirty and like cheeky with Audrina, right? But I thought it was really interesting because we saw Chelley and Olandria, the two black women of the show, the two monoracial black women on the show, the two dark-skinned women on the show. And I noticed immediately that for a lot of people, especially people who are not dark-skinned, particularly, right? People who are not dark-skinned have really rarely seen a black woman, my skin complexion or darker, be pursued in a room full of biracial girls, white girls, blah, blah, blah. That was a very triggering thing. I think that that was very, very triggering because I saw so many people be like, oh, Chelley, nobody really is into her like that. Oh, I think the guys are just playing the game. But when it came to all the other girls who were very average looking, to be very honest, it was like, oh yeah, I know they want her. I know the guys are happy now because look who just walked in. Oh, look at this bombshell. And I was just like, what world do we all live in? But it made me realize that even when it came to Chelley, for instance, one of the microaggressions that I noticed when it came to Chelley was when she was dating Austin and Ace. And I noticed that like both between Austin and Ace, they both were kind of giving iffy energy. And the iffy energy felt like if somebody else walks in this room who I think is more attractive to me than you, I'm going to go with that person. And what's interesting is that Ace did that every single time. Ace did that at least 3 times. When each bombshell walked in, he pursued the bombshell before choosing Chelley. And even though they are a beautiful couple now, I think that, we're rooting for them, whatever. However, I just can't unsee that he chose every light-skinned option that came into the villa over her. I can't unsee that, right? Because in the real dating world, when you take a scenario out of the villa like that and you put that in a regular world and you see a guy that you've met, but you also see every week, every time he see a new girl in the club or the place that he works, he has to taste the flavor. He has to test the connection. I think that in the real world, that would be an insult, right? But when you are in a simulation like Love Island, where you don't have your phone, you can't walk away, you can't block, you can't mute, you can't really cuss this nigga out like you really want to. It's like now you are forced to kind of just accept things without even really being able to explain how you genuinely feel about it. One of the things that bothered me about this show was the fact that the real conversations were not being had in front of everybody, in front of the world. I feel like so much of dating has to do with how people view each other culturally, ethnically, socially, whatever the case may be. When Amaya and Austin got into it during the challenge, where Ace was up there during the challenge where they had to stand on business or whatever, and Ace was up there and he was telling Austin, like, you didn't even have the courage to tell Amaya the truth about how you felt about her. Ace was basically telling Austin, like, you would come to us and talk so negatively about Amaya, but then when you are with Amaya, you make it seem like everything's okay, you act like you like her and all this stuff. And he was like, and I didn't like that. And when Amaya chimed in, the way that Austin spoke to her, it was so like when I was watching that scene where he was like, do you understand what that means? I heard him call her the hard ER. That was all I heard. All I heard was NIGGER. Like, I literally just heard him call her a monkey. Like, I was watching that, and as soon as he said that, I said, did he just call her the N-word? And we just started laughing because I was like, Why would he say it like that? Like, do you understand? What I also don't like about Love Island producers, what I don't like about Love Island producers is that they take out certain moments that needed to be said. Because in that moment, Amaya said, "Don't disrespect me like that." She said, "There are things about you that I've realized that I didn't realize before." And I can almost bet that Amaya brought up some type of racial microaggression that he had. And I feel like that wasn't fair that they didn't put that on the show, since they kicking out people for racial microaggressions, right? I feel like that wasn't fair, and I feel like that is a true reality. Also, when Austin said to Amaya in that same moment, when she was reacting, and when Austin was like, "Yeah, this is the reaction I knew I didn't want to deal with," he literally called her a cockroach. He literally basically was talking about, like, "Yeah, I figured you had this type of temperament in you," because he assumes, based off of what she is, that there's a certain type of attitude that he knows is associated with this type of person. And when he said, "Yeah, I knew I didn't want to have to deal with this type of attitude eventually," all I heard was, "This is why I don't date black girls." That's what I heard. Please tell me in the comments if you heard something else, because that's what I heard. I heard, "This is why I don't date black girls." That's what I heard. Let's talk about Huda. Let's talk about Huda. In the beginning, I was rooting for Huda because I think that rooting for women's wrongs and rights is funny. I do. I also have a soft spot in me for women that terrorize men. I think it's hilarious. Sorry. I think it's funny when the preference that a lot of black men have, which is usually non-black women. I think it is so funny when y'all go through the same shit with non-black women that y'all claim y'all don't date black women for. I love it when non-black women do the same shit and y'all just be sitting there looking crazy just like Chris did. Anyways, I was rooting for Huda probably up until the moment she started calling Jeremiah a bunch of BAN. Well, she didn't say BAN, but she was definitely calling him BAs, right? And up until that point was when I was like, okay, now this is getting uncomfortable, because even though I do think it's funny, because a black man will never let a black woman, especially on national television, call him a BA, but the way that non-black women can call y'all the N-word, they can call y'all BAs, they can call y'all PAs, they can call y'all anything and under the sun, and y'all still find them a preference, y'all still want to fuck them, y'all still find them beautiful, and y'all would never come out your mouth and say, "I don't date this culture of women," no matter how many of those women have called you out your name. So I don't really care about it on the black, like, no offense, but if black men accept that type of behavior, then you accept that type of behavior, because like I said, these women can't act that way if there's no one to act that way towards, and they know who to act that way with, and they know who is going to accept them. And it is very clear who accepted Huda, and it was very clear who did not. The Spaniard. Okay, Pepe said, "I keep it very specific over here." He said white, blonde, blue. Okay, Huda is none of those things, right? And I also found it interesting. Huda reminds me of so many girls, but I do want to say that the relationship between Huda, Chelley, and Olandria that is now spewing online from Huda's fans to huge media platforms like Buzzfeed and Time, who are putting out hit pieces and literally putting out actual misinformation about Olandria and Chelley. I find that to be really scary, because I can't imagine being in an experience lasting over 5 weeks for some of them, like Olandria and Chelley. They have been there from the beginning. So they have not been able to be on their phone for over 5 weeks. And they get on their phone to see that these big major outlets are talking about them in the ways that they are. I find it to be extremely disgusting. BuzzFeed and Time, horrible platforms. Sorry. And shout out to young baby Tate for not only bringing this to our attention, but also doxing the person who wrote it, who happens to be a white woman. I want to talk really quick about a lot of the different microaggressions just from this particular season. I found Huda's presence on the show important. I think for a lot of people they say things like good for TV. I don't think that Huda was necessarily good for TV. I think that Huda was good as a character. You need that character on television. Yes, right? You need the character that is toxic. You need the character that is so outrageous. You need the character that is so oblivious to who they are, who lacks self awareness. Right? You do need characters on a show that have a redemption arc, who change in real time. Those are good qualities of any type of reality TV character, right? However, I think it's unfortunate that a lot of times when non-black women go on these shows and they gravitate towards black women as friends and they gravitate to black men as partners, what bothers me is that a lot of times is that these non-black women often have no real connection to black culture. They have no real connection to how to respect black culture, black people. They only know how to yes, girl, yes. And they only know how to have sex with the men, but they very rarely actually know what is and is not okay. There were so many moments where Huda showed that the only thing she knows about black culture is what is accepted in the strip club. But she had no real knowledge of microaggressions. She had no real knowledge of how to approach black women, how to engage with black women, especially when there's a time for conflict. She leaned into being a Karen. She leaned into a very white woman tier role. She leaned into I am going to act like these women have just killed my fucking family and I am going to be so dramatic so that people feel sorry for me, which plays into the demonization of Chelley and Olandria, who literally did nothing to this girl, right? I found that to be very interesting, and then to see how Huda is outside of the villa. In her recent interview with Call Her Daddy, you just see somebody who has no self-awareness. Did Huda go through a lot as a child? Yes. Is Huda a part of a identity group who is going through something monumental in the world? Yes. Unfortunately, those things don't excuse you being a nasty person, right? And I think that Huda is somebody that the reality of someone like Huda is that she is a common personality type. And I think that's where people say things like, oh, she's good for TV. Yes, she's good for TV because she is a common personality type that acts a fool. But in reality, I think that there's also something to say about the fact that she's also a common personality type that needs to go to therapy. And she's also a common personality type that we hear when children grow up, they have issues with their parents. She also has a personality type that a lot of people that we have gone to school with, that some of us have fought, right? She has a common personality type, but that common personality type does not make it okay. And it's really nasty to see how it translates outside of the villa. We see Chelley and Olandria having to literally navigate the social media space from not just their own personal relationships with the men that they have chosen and that have chosen them, but they also have to now deal with major white platforms, podcasters, platforms, outlets who are speaking so negatively against them, literally for no reason and literally just to show support for the white upper class, right? And so I felt like as much as I loved Love Island, I also saw that there were so many things that producers could do to make it better. Once we saw the photo come out of the production crew for Love Island, and we saw that there were no black women in the entire production crew, that let me know everything I need to know. Now, me personally, I will not be watching another season of Love Island if I do not see another update of the production crew, and if there are not a certain number of black women, a certain number of monoracial black women, a certain number of black women with some type of cultural relevancy. If that does not get integrated into the show, into the production, I will not be watching, because this has now become a cesspool for attacking Black women. And it's really disgusting to watch, right? Because who wouldn't want to go on a dope show like Love Island and immediately come out of that villa and now you have brand deals, you are famous, people are taking pictures of you, you're making money. Love Island is one of the very few shows where people are coming off of that show and they are receiving brand deals that the girls from America's Next Top Model never got. So in reality, Love Island is a dope opportunity. However, it seems like it is a cesspool for people to be very argumentative and demonstrative, or to be very nasty towards Black women. And I don't think that the risk is worth the reward, right? In this case, it was, because the women were strong enough, and the women from last season, season 6, seem to have been strong enough to be able to face that. But I just think that there are so many things that need to change about production when it comes to even just allowing the islanders to go outside of the villa and do other activities outside of the villa. Like, there are so many different things that can bring so much more to the show. But I think that there needs to be an age of consent to watch the show, considering there is so much explicit imagery. I think that there should be age restrictions on the show. I think that there should be more. There should be less trying to put these people in a rat lab test villa like that. I think that there should be more opportunities for them to actually go out and experience. And if I'm being honest, I kind of feel like it shouldn't be as live as it is. As much as I like that, I just feel like the production crew doesn't have the actual wherewithal to protect the people that are in the villas for the 48-hour live live shows that we are getting. I just think that it's becoming way too dangerous, and I feel like they need to fix some things, because what has now happened with 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds and people in high school and college getting access to this show has turned into Sierra's family getting called, ICE getting called on them. Certain people are getting death threats and all these things, and it's just not worth it. Keeping it short again in this episode, make sure you guys visit the website, grioteofthediaspora.com. I have a shop on there. Make sure you go to shop. If you are looking for travel consultations for Ghana, make sure you hit me up for that as well. Until next time.